When I got out to that collective garden, that's when things really started to feel real. Like, all of a sudden, you know, the people that I've been talking to on the internet, and, you know, authors and, you know, all the real activists were coming through there to see where we were planting all these marijuana plants. Remember, as soon as I showed up there, the second time I got there actually, it was for the garden master, you know, the owner of the property and everything. It was his birthday, so he's having a big party, and I look over on the couch, and that was Jack Herer. You know, Jack Herer went from being someone that I didn't think I'd ever meet to being someone that I was hanging out with almost every day. And, you know, that 4th of July was great. The house was under construction, but we went out onto the roof and watched the fireworks come off of the casino. It was down by the lake. This is over in Lake County in California. It was just really great time to be part of things, because medical marijuana was still fresh at that point. We hadn't really decided how we were going to go about it. Things like collective gardening was foreseeable. Nowadays, hardly anyone talks about collective gardening. Most people just have this idea that, you know, you go to the dispensary, you buy your pot, and you go home and do whatever you want with it. Back then, we were all looking for growers and caregivers. It was a whole different scene. Anything was possible. But yeah, I went from Sacramento and moved to Lake County, and I was still running Urban Compassion with people in Sac, but I mean, living at that collective garden, I really felt like I had made it. And what they wanted me to do there was figure out how to turn all the raw plants that we were growing into usable medicine on a large scale. So I from time to time, I would end up with, you know, a kitchen full of trim, and you know, it's my job to make the pot butter. It's my job to figure out like the best recipe for cookies. And, you know, there's a video from back then online of me talking about how I wanted to get it into capsule that people just took once or twice a day, and, you know, so we didn't have to mess around with smoking all the time. I felt like smoking was a huge waste of, you know, for the amount of time to put into it and the amount of relief that a person gets. I always knew that the derivatives were going to be the better option. But because 25 acres were right there on the highway, Highway 20 in California, we ended up getting raided that August, and I was there for the raid. I remember about 7:30 in the morning, all the dogs started barking, and Eddie goes out on the deck and looks, and comes back in and he says, "The cops are here, they got guns." So, I mean, I was sitting on the couch right next to him. I'm like, oh, I better not be sitting right on the couch next to this guy. So I went into the kitchen. One of the guys who was working with the National Guard, you know, comes in and points his gun in my face, and kind of becomes my babysitter for the rest of the afternoon. And they ended up letting me off of the property because I had told everyone there that I was 16, even though I was 19, and everyone there told the cops that I was 16. So the cops were just, they didn't know what the hell to do with me. They really didn't want to find any real patients in this garden. And I mean, I was bad off at that point. I must have been like 95 pounds, 5'7", and they just wanted to get rid of me. They told me, like, okay, you can just walk on the highway, and I'm like, I don't know anybody in Lake County. I ain't walking. And they're like, well, we'll drop you off at a restaurant. I'm like, no, you can't do that. And they're like, well, we'll take you to the hospital. No, I don't want to go to the hospital. I'd rather go to jail. So they just kept getting stumped. And then finally there was 3 other boys there. Their grandfather was coming to pick them up. They asked me if I wanted to ride out with them. And okay, that's cool. I know these people. That guy was a retired chiropractor. He was real into alternative medicine. He was one of the first people that I met who, opened up my mind to the possibility that maybe there was maybe there were things that I could be taking from alternative medicine that would make it so that, either the pot would work more for me, or maybe I wouldn't need it as much. I met a ton of really amazing people at that collective garden, and even though, like, I didn't walk away with any medicine, the network that I started building at that point is still, like, I don't know what I would do without it. But as you can imagine, if we didn't count the plants, the cops did. There was over 32,000 plants. There were some people that were kind of pissed off that we weren't going to be able to harvest anything for them because they had already paid for that year's crop. And that's really the problem with collective gardening, is if it gets stolen, or the crop doesn't turn out right, then the patients really don't have any way to recuperate their efforts. And a lot of people, I mean, maybe like 2,000 people had given money to get this garden going, and they were all without their meds, getting kind of cranky. So that by that October, that November, when we would have been harvesting, we started getting death threats coming in on the phone every day. And it went from being one of the brightest, most hopeful times to one of the most challenging. So, also at that time, when I came to this collective garden, they didn't really have what I would call a mascot patient, because the wife of the guy that ran the collective had always been the mascot patient in the years before I found out about this. She didn't want to go. She didn't want to live somewhere that had 20 or 25 acres across the highway and 15 acres up on the ranch. She was comfortable with the 15 acres, but the 25 off the highway was too much for her, and she got the heck out of there. When she met me and realized that if she wasn't there, there'd just be another patient to take her place, I don't think that she could have lived with that. So she came back, and we became good friends. The kid with Crohn's disease and the little old lady with cancer. She wasn't an old lady, but she liked to pass it off like she was an old lady. We were the patients of that garden. And people would, on the one hand, we were getting death threats over the phone. On the other hand, people were showing up with medicine and donating it to us because they felt terrible that we were going without. And whole different side of people. You know, I went there thinking, you know, we're going to harvest all this pot, we're going to be able to do all these things with it. That didn't happen. But what did happen was, it might have been even more beautiful than, well, I mean, harvesting 32 plants would have been awesome. Who the fuck am I kidding? But getting to see people come through for us who had nothing to gain but their own peace of mind, it instilled in me the value of the community around medical marijuana in ways that a person who goes to a dispensary and buys pot and takes it home is just never going to be able to get without a place to congregate and really get to know one another. So I'm forever grateful that I was a part of that, and even though it was a group of people who weren't able to do what we said we were going to do, we were still very important. Now, unfortunately, a couple of years later, we found out that Linda was, her cancer had gotten so bad in her lungs that there was really nothing that could be done for her, and she passed away, I think it was 2008, and then for Eddie, the 32,000 plants right across the highway, there was no way he could be a free man for long, and he's serving a 10-year sentence right now. So, I mean, I learned that sometimes it's the sacrifices that people make. I learned the real price of them, and I don't take anything about this responsibility lightly. It's the most serious thing on earth to me, that life or death for disabled people, and making the last moments of a person who is going to pass some of the greatest moments in their life. I saw all that firsthand. I was a part of that. And it was big.